Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Sylvester Sullivan Jr., better known as Sly to me. We will address that here in a minute. But Dr. Sullivan is a retired Navy chief and a senior level education, training, and development expert within the defense and space industry. Sly, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Enrique. Please call me Sly, bro.
And you
Please.
know I will.
Yes,
Folks,
sir. Yes, sir.
today we will be speaking about leadership lens, navigating development and growth. But before we get into that conversation, Slide, tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Enrique, for the invite once again. Um, me, I'm originally from Compton, California. Served in the Navy for more than 20 years before retiring in 2017. My wife, who also has served in the military, retired just last year. So I spent the latter part of the 2017 to 2023 as a dutiful military spouse. Truly enjoy that. We have a teenage daughter who is in her first year of high school. So we're currently focused on the ebb and flow or the ups and downs of teenage life. While in the military, though, I did earn my bachelor's degree in psychology, my master's in social work, and my doctorate in education. I'm a certified advanced practice social worker, a master training specialist for the Navy, master mindset coach, professional life coach, a certified professional life coach, a master spiritual life coach, or ordained minister, certified counselor through the Department of Labor, a member of the Kappa Delta Pi, which is an international honor society, member of the NAACP, University of Southern California Alumni Association, member in good standing. I'm also a member of the Veteran Mentor Network and the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Mu Beta Lambda chapter.
Well, can we add one more to that?
What's that, sir? What's that?
Navy Chief, Navy Pride. I tell you
Absolutely,
what.
absolutely. How could I ever forget Navy Chief, Navy Pride?
All
Oh
right.
yeah.
Well, when we talk about leadership, there's a lot of times that we bring in the thing of competency, right? And if you ask me, there's a lot of lack of competency when you talk about leadership specific, right? The art of leadership, the science behind leadership. A lot of folks just dive into that position and
Mhm.
say, it's, hey, this is going to be a normal day. But I'll tell you what, you're not ready for a
Mhm.
normal day if your competency is not up. So, what are the key competencies and skills required for effective leadership within organizations, and how can we develop them in our leaders?
That's a great question. Appreciate that. So, in my experience, the one thing that I've always focused on from the very outset of any position that I'm in is focusing on the skill, uh, the ability to lead. What I mean by that is there is one major skill that I believe that each and every leader should have, and that is the actual ability to lead. And within that realm, let's take the word lead, for example, LEAD. That actually speaks to the competencies that I believe that a leader should have. First and foremost, you need to be able to listen. As a leader, you need to be able to listen, more specifically, be an active listener, because you need to be able to hear when your team or your organization needs something. Even if they're not outright saying it, as a leader, you need to be able to pick up on what they're really saying. And then that takes us to the next letter, letter E, which means you need to be able to empathize with your team, with your organization, with your peers, with your subordinates. It's important for you to be able to empathize with them so you can build trust. But you and I both know without trust, you're in order to be an effective leader, you're pretty much lost if you lose that trust. The A in the word lead stands for adapt. As a leader, you need to be able to be adaptable because all situations change. You could be in a situation where you have everything going right, and you spoke to it earlier. If you're going into the day thinking it's going to be picture perfect and nothing's going to happen where you may have to shift, then you've already set yourself up for failure. So the A is the ability to adapt. And lastly, in my opinion, and what has worked for me. And that is going in with the mindset of developing. That D stands for develop. If you're not a leader trying to develop those around you, then you're not doing your job. So, in that sense, the word lead encompasses the competencies needed in order for you to have the ability to lead effectively. Make
I
sense?
love I love it. I love it. And you don't have to go too far from the actual word to get you what you need. And those are four pivotal things that you or critical things that you must employ as far as your toolkit for a leader.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
we focus a lot on development in the Navy. We had a thing called PARS at one time, and I'm sure you
Yes.
remember that.
Yes,
And
I
we
do.
have PQSs, we have training managers, we have all kinds of ways and programs to develop leaders, namely the schools we send people to
Hmm.
make sure that they get the science behind leadership. But the organizations out here, the civilian organizations out here, don't necessarily have that. So, how can organizations create a leadership development program that fosters both personal growth and organizational success?
I have one of those types of brains where I look at everything from a mnemonic perspective, which means I'll take a bunch of information and I'll cram it into an acronym. And partly my Navy training has influenced me to think that way. So I do everything with an acronym. So we talked about, I'm saying all that to say, we talked about the word lead. And if we're talking in this sense about developing a leadership program, I would take that word lead and then add the ER to it and form it into leader. Now, and when we're talking about developing a leadership program, here's the things that an organization I feel should do. First and foremost, create a learning environment. That L stands for learning. Create and foster a learning environment where it's conducive and encouraged for people to continuously learn. I would also encourage them to take the E from that word and use it as experience. What you want to do as twofold, because you want to take your subordinates, you want to create moments, you want to create opportunities for them to gain leadership experience. But you also, in the second part of that, you want to take your leaders who have experience and use them to help you develop that program. So take advantage of the experienced leaders you have and also cultivate a opportunity for the subordinates to develop leadership experience. The A is going to be to assess. After you've done that, you want to continuously assess the program, the areas you want to continuously assess where your strengths are. You want to continuously assess where there's need for improvement with regards to a leadership development program. You want to take the D from the leadership or from the leadership word or acronym and use that as the part where you develop the program. You want to use the D as part of the development phase after the assessment. So, okay, we've completed the assessment. Now let's go ahead and develop the program. The E is going to be engaged. This is where you're going to engage all levels of your command or all levels of your organization, from the person who is maybe the person sweeping the floor to the person who's making the executive strategic decision at the top. Engage everyone in developing this leadership program. And the R is going to be encourage reflection, basically reflection. You're going to ask folks to reflect on their experiences and internalize the learning to help it improve their retention for that particular learning experience.
That's a great breakdown of leader and how you can actually develop a program for you and your organization and a blueprint to keep that on track and get everybody involved. And that's one of the things that I loved about that, the engagement piece. Engagement is up and engagement is down. The thing about that, it has to be active. And so I love that acronym and how you use that. Now, when you talked about strategies of implementing this, everybody has a way of, making this work. So, what strategies can organizations implement to identify and nurture emerging leadership talent within their teams?
So as we progress, we've talked about lead, we've talked about leader. Now let's talk about leaders. We add the S to that and make it plural, and it's simply from the organization's perspective, so to answer the question bluntly or directly, the focus will be to locate locate those potential leaders, which means identifying those potential leaders based on initiatives and influence. We want to encourage, which means fostering a supportive environment for growth. We want to assess, which means looking at and evaluating the skills and developmental needs of those potential leaders. We're going to D, which is develop. Again, this develop is a this is my pet peeve with certain leaders. When I see them in a position where they're not actually developing, they're just in the position to benefit themselves. So D, the development piece for me is something that I will always be a champion of. Nonetheless, which and I feel it's a crucial component of any leader. If they're not developing others, then what are they in the position for? You know, um, but moving on to the E portion of it, this is the part where we empower by assigning. We empower our subordinates by assigning them challenging projects to help them gain practical experience. That's the E portion of it. The R is reflect. Again, we're reflecting on our learning experiences, our leadership experiences. And lastly, the key piece of this is offering that support, making sure we're supporting our subordinates and then helping them achieve the level of leadership they want, especially if they have the potential, to be very effective leaders. So we will often want to support our subordinates in that case.
And one of the greatest things leaders can do is support. A lot of folks want
Absolutely.
to be in positions of authority to say and to
Hmm.
tell and
Hmm.
to dictate. But your greatest reward as a leader will always come by the level of support you give your folks.
Absolutely.
Just the other day I saw an announcement on LinkedIn. This young lady announced, "Hey, I just became the assistant director of Umpty Squad," right?
You're right.
And this was a young lady that I spent 7 months with as her supervisor in the same organization. And I remember clearly giving her basically the Navy's blueprint
Hmm.
to succeed and progress in developing yourself as
Hmm.
the next position.
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
I saw that, I'm not going to take all credit or not even partial. All I know is that I gave her a blueprint, and that young lady, in a matter of years, I'm talking about a handful of years,
Mm.
went from a field technician to the assistant director
Hmm.
of that
Hmm.
organization. And look,
Hmm.
my hairs are standing up
Yes, yes,
because I
yes,
had
yes.
a little piece of that ability, and that was through supporting her. And
Absolutely.
so that's where leaders get their biggest bang for the buck. So I don't know how many leaders are out there listening right now, but if you're missing out on the support piece, you're cheating yourself out of future
Amen.
joy, right? And
Amen.
that that's a fact. Now,
Absolutely.
what
Absolutely.
both of
Speaking gospel, brother. You're speaking
all
gospel.
right, now don't let me loose. But I tell you, when part of that is the ability to mentor, and a lot of leaders negate the power of mentorship as well and coaching, right? some
Hmm.
some leaders can't coach, right? Some leaders some leaders shouldn't even mentor, but we are all
We
called
know a
to do
few.
it, right? We all are called to do both. And so how can we leverage mentorship and coaching, the initiatives, to support the ongoing development of our leaders?
One of the many lessons I learned in my time as not only an undesignated seaman, but progressing all the way through the ranks to make it to chief petty officer, which is one of the greatest achievements of my life. One of the things that I experienced throughout my career was at every level, I had a mentor or someone who, if I can just go back to the word we were focusing on previously, someone who supported me by providing that information or providing that guidance or providing that kick in the butt that I may have needed. So to answer your question, I've always looked at it from a leadership perspective. Again, and again, I apologize to your audience, but I'm just building on that word lead. We went from lead, leader, leaders, and now we're going to talk about leadership. All right, we're going to add on to it and call and talk about leadership. And in this sense, we're talking about mentors and coaches. The first thing that I feel needs to be implemented, if you will, at an organization, is they have to actually launch a program. So we take the L word and we have to launch a mentor program, a mentoring and coaching program, and set clear goals. Secondly, we're going to need to engage, which means involving the mentors and the proteges fully in the process of the mentor and coaching program. The A is going to be assign, which is matching up mentors with proteges. The second part, or the fourth part rather, will be deliver. We're going to need to deliver whatever necessary training that is needed to deliver an effective program and produce effective mentoring. So, the E is going to be to actually establish, which means to set measurable goals that we want to be able to see with our mentors and the proteges, and how that relationship is either working or the relationship is not working. And then we're going to take the R, which is regular check-ins. Mentors need to regularly check in with their proteges, and the program managers need to regularly check in with the mentors to make sure that they're okay, make sure that they're progressing, because they may say this is not, the protege may feel like it's a good fit, but the mentor may say, nah, this might not be such a good fit. And so the program managers, whoever's in charge of the program, need to be able to regularly check in with the mentors as well as the proteges. Support comes up again. We're talking about, you know, how support really, really, really helps proteges and subordinates and things of that nature. It helps in the mentor and protege relationship as well. We're going to be able to offer resources and support to all the participants. Again, even the mentors need someone to talk to every now and again and say, this may not be working or this may be working. Either way, we're going to make sure we're providing that support. And not secondly, but the H in this particular situation is going to be to harness. And what I mean by harness, and some of the old folks, let me rephrase that. I don't want to say old folks. The old school way of thinking, they're not embracing technology. We want to be able to harness technology to help facilitate mentoring, because sometimes you may not be able to meet in person. Remember when COVID hit, we learned very well how to use technology, because we had to go to Zoom meetings, and it changed the way we did business. So the same thing applies here. We're going to need to be able to harness that technology. The I is going to be to incorporate feedback, because without that feedback, how will we know how well we're doing in terms of the program? And then lastly, the P part of it is to promote success stories. In other words, celebrate those victories, right? If there's a relationship, a mentor and protege relationship that is really flourishing, then we need to promote that, because that what that does is it inspires others. And so in that sense, when we're talking about mentors and proteges and coaching programs, leadership is the acronym that I use.
Very powerful use of that acronym. And you know, promoting something requires your belief, right? You have to believe in the program that is being instituted. So organizations need to understand that just because you stand up a program to mentor and to coach your people, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean your people don't believe,
Mm-hmm.
or that they
Mm-hmm.
do believe. So you have to manage expectations. You have to be clear about your communication, how you're rolling this thing out.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you and I know from the Chiefs mess, things come our way sometimes that we're like, where and for what reason? But
Right.
at the end of the day, when we come out of the mess, it's on, right? It's
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely.
We agreed on something. Yeah, people may not know what it is, but we
Right.
agreed on something,
Absolutely.
and we
Absolutely.
believe that agreement. And when we come out them doors, it's on. And we're gonna make this thing work and make it
Absolutely.
happen. So
100%.
Organizations have to have their leadership do something similar,
Hmm.
where there are no divisions or discord, but that everybody is singing the same thing, as the Chiefsmith try to do on a daily basis. Now,
Absolutely.
I live in Orlando. Here in the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps all have what we call the hub of innovation here, simulation, right? The naval technical training is out here doing simulations. They run all that out of here in Orlando, and then they farm it out to other bases as programs. And I remember vividly being in the Navy in a Humvee, but I was in a building, right? And we're doing this was Afghanistan training and being deployed training, and we're in a Humvee and in
Yeah.
a room full of nothing but screens, doing what we call experiential learning, right?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
and
sir.
I tell you, some of those things will get your mind going. I
Right?
remember one scenario I had to pull them things out. So there's
Yes, sir.
there's
Yeah.
there's a way that corporations can integrate some of these new technologies into their training. So, in what ways can we incorporate experiential learning opportunities, such as simulations or real world challenges, to enhance the leadership capabilities of our team members?
I'm a huge proponent of technology. Um, I was thinking recently about buying me an Apple Vision Pro, but my wife talked me out of it and told me to wait until the second generation comes out. So I will. They work out all the kinks. But to answer your question, when I think of technology, I think of leading edge, right? That phrase pops into my head. You want to be at the leading edge of technology. And again, how my mnemonic brain works. How can I turn that phrase into an acronym that captures the full depth and breadth of how we can implement this type of learning into developing leaders? So, using the phrase leading edge, I'm thinking first we need to lay the foundation, right? Which means defining the goals for integrating that experiential learning. At that point, we should be able to evaluate or assess our current leadership skills and identify developmental needs or developmental goals, right? So we lay the foundation of what we want to achieve with that particular type of training and what we want that particular type of training to accomplish. I feel like at varying levels, there's always someone at an organization who may know more than the next person or their subordinates in terms of how experiential learning can be applied, what's the benefits of it. So if we have those types of individuals within the command, absolutely we can assign them as mentors, right? You can use that and say we can assign them as mentors to train others or to help others become familiar with experiential learning. For example, if I showed up at a command and they had a Humvee that was a simulator, and there was an individual who went through it prior to me, they could tell me, hey, listen, make sure you do this and make sure you do that. Don't do this and don't do that. So in other words, they can give me some insight that I would not necessarily receive from a textbook. The other part of that would be design. And again, if I'm using the acronym leading edge, the D would be to actually design or create that realistic experiential learning activity. After we've designed it, we need to implement it. So the I would be implement. Let's go ahead and implement that. The N could represent nurture, which means building a supportive learning culture. We spoke on that earlier about building that learning culture. The G could be to we can gauge, which means to assess, regularly assess the participants' progress, get feedback from them. Is this working? Is it realistic? So we can gauge. The E would be to engage, which means we're going to continuously try to improve. We engage, we continuously try to improve that particular program. The D could be to develop. When I say develop, it means develop The reason why we have the program in place is because we're developing leaders to take our place. In other words, like a succession plan. If you're not developing others to take your place, and that's one thing I learned about being in the mess as well, is when you're developing those subordinates, you're developing your replacement. You're developing those who are going to take your place uh, when you retire, right? Leave the Navy in good hands, which I felt like I did. um, G is going to be to generate support or generate, and we want to make sure we generate that support, that buy-in from the upper echelon and the lower echelon of the chain of command. And then the E is going to be to expand, looking for ways to expand it, make it better. So in my mind, leading edge is a mnemonic acronym that I would use to make sure that we are implementing that experiential learning process within an organization. That's how I would put it.
Well put there, and using leading edge as the guide, because this technology is the leading edge of what we're doing. I love the experiential learning process and participating in that, because there's nothing like that impact to your brain. And you
Mm-hmm.
can read a book, you can watch a movie, or you could be in it, right? Without being in it, and
Yeah.
still get some real, I'd say, impactful learning
Mm-hmm.
from that. And they do that here, like I said, in Orlando all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they branch that out. And so I love that. And if there's a company out there that's looking for that type of training, and you don't know how to find it, send me a message, send Sly a message. I'm sure we're connected with someone that runs those type of facilities to get you that opportunity to learn in a different way. Now,
Absolutely.
now, Slide, there's a
Absolutely.
lot that you're doing. There's a lot that you do. What do you have coming up, and how can folks listening or viewing this get a hold of you?
Thank you for that. So my wife and I are truly, truly, truly enjoying the retired life. We are. Um, and I also, I have working on the federal side of the house, doing what I need to do on that side. Um, but I will say this: I've partnered with a training and development organization to co-write a personal and professional development book. Now, unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to discuss the particulars, but I will say this: when the book drops, it's going to be a game changer, especially in the realm of personal and professional development. And hopefully, we can create a series of uh, partnerships with individuals within their field, subject matter experts within their fields, to develop follow-on books that focus on specific areas within personal and professional development. But at this moment, we anticipate that our first book will be out this year. But there's still a few administrative and legal loose ends we got to tie up before we actually put it out there and talk about it. But I'm super excited about the book. I'm super excited to be a part of this game changing, in my opinion, this game changing project to introduce this book to the world. I believe it will help individuals and organizations in a massive way, And definitely, I'm gonna let you know, Enrique, and your audience know as soon as the book hits the streets. But yeah, I'm looking forward to dropping that book. I'm on all the socials, but I'm only on the socials more so for so I'm informed, right, and not ill informed. So I try to stay up on everything. However, the most effective way to get in touch with me is through my email address, which is Dr. Sylvester Sullivan at gmail.com. That's DrSylvester at gmail.com. Dr. Sylvester Sullivan at gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you, from all of you.
Outstanding. And we'll make sure to have that information as part of the show notes and video, so you can get a hold of Dr. Sullivan, better known as Sly, on this
Yes,
end.
sir. Yes, sir.
And folks, we've covered a lot of mnemonic type of learning today. We covered leader, leaders, leadership, and leading edge today. And I hope that you got all of that and can share it with your teams. Let them learn as well. I want to remind everybody that today's episode is sponsored by Fantail Services and Superpass, which are powering our website and app, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, The Outlier Project, and Duco. If you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment right now. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can add to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like featured on the podcast or want to sponsor our show, we'd love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by StreamYard, a browser-based tool that lets you live stream to any platform and record podcasts in studio quality and even host webinars. It's built for creators and video marketers to make your job way easier. And we just use it to record this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.